Chapter 131 to 132. The morning sun was radiant to the skin and dazzling on the seawater. The whole place was brightened up by the reflection of the glowing and dancing sea waves. Under the light, the small crowd of people outside the pirate ship were whispering to each other. Their target of whisper was the man in front of them, clad in black, wearing a silver steel mask. "It is kind of disgusting seeing you eat the food all raw." The man, Amon, who changed his previous anonymous mask, said as the people looked at him confused. Obviously, as a pirate, he must be lying, right? After a few seconds of battling through the people's gaze, Hitetsu removed his sword from Amon's neck. Amon grinned under his mask. His eyes created crescent moons. "It is indeed disgusting, and a little unhealthy too. Perhaps you can make them delicious, traveler," Hitetsu said, his voice still as stern as steel. Hitetsu was quite strong, and with his high insight, he couldn't sense any type of malice from Amon. Though in truth, it was another form of hiding presence from Amon's side, similar to Yona. "Thank you," Amon smiled. "I had the plan to do so to begin with." Amon planned to get closer to them using one of the easiest ways: food. The cooking fire was dancing. Fascinating!" Hitetsu exclaimed in shock and surprise. He was intrigued by Amon's cooking that his shining eyes were looking at. "That's a fascinating scent. It's been a long time I smelled something like this." Amon chuckled and continued to shake the spoon inside the pot. Hitetsu gulped his saliva. "To think I will witness such quality Odin made by someone other than Odin-sama. Ha ha ha, you are praising me too much. I can't even cook it properly." That's right, Amon was cooking Odin. In the pot, there was an assortment of vegetables and proteins such as processed fish cakes, mochi rice cakes, boiled eggs, daikon radish, konjac yam, and tofu, and stewing them in a light broth seasoned with soy sauce and a special soup named dashi in a large hot pot at the center of a table. As a cook, Amon wasn't at the level of Sanji or some other famous cooks, but he was at least confident enough in his abilities to outmatch the cooking of a swordsman like Odin. "Ha ha! Do you like the scent that much?" Amon quickly picked up a bowl from the other table beside him and filled it with Odin. "Then how much will you like the feeling in your mouth?" Amon raised the bowl towards his face. "Oh!" With slightly shaking hands, Hitetsu accepted the bowl. He loosened his mask a little only to show his large, swollen lips, and took a sip. His eyes instantly grew up as he jumped from excitement. "Oh, this is great!" After a few seconds, Hitetsu's cheeks were covered in tears. "This is magnificent! Ha ha ha!" The Odin was good, but not at the level of making him this emotional. Amon basically made the specific soup of Odin to control him emotionally, to form a connection between the dead Odin and himself. "Young man, thank you." And it worked. "Then, thank you so much." He was simply too happy tasting something like this, the food he last tasted when Odin gave him a bowl 23 years ago. "You don't know how happy I am." Hitetsu was born in Wano. He had wings just like his father, and it seemed his ancestor came here from another country where people had wings burqa. Unfortunately, being so far from the family tree, he didn't know much about the Burkan god, so Amon couldn't exploit his position here, sadly. "It's fine. I am happy to make you so pleased," Amon said, and handed Otama a bowl too, who was hiding behind Hitetsu's massive figure. By now, Amon had already found out where Nidai Kitetsu was. Truthfully, he would have just taken the sword by force, but there was a better way by acting nice. If he steals it, he can't stay here anymore. Thus, Ace's crew can't stay here anymore, and they have to flee inside Wano. In that scenario, Kaido, who hadn't left yet, would come and kill Ace, thus destroying his biggest plan of all time in this world. It would be meaningless to mess everything else just for that sword. To begin with, the sword was just a side quest. Amon doesn't only want to take the sword, he also wants to take Odin and Toki's daughter, Hiyori's blood sample, along with the diary of Odin from Yamato. Not only that, he needs to lay low to make it seem like he was a person from Ace's crew, and everything he did was because of him. That meant after Ace would join Whitebeard, Amon would pull strings if Canon doesn't go the same. Then Kaido would not go after Ace, since he won't try to pick a fight with Whitebeard. Even if he does, it's not like he would be able to defeat them. The only time he would go after Ace would be in the War of the Best. In the War of the Best, against two emperors and their army, the Marines will definitely lose. Thus benefiting Amon and his plans, and with his interference, he might succeed at killing off Kaido as well. Who knows? All in all, it was a win-win situation, as long as Amon acted like a decent human being for a while. Soon after, Hitetsu walked towards the tied-up spade pirates and bowed lightly. I, as a samurai, am ashamed to have captured you, benefactors. He stayed in that position for a minute before raising his head. Please, allow me to free you. He took out his sword, and before Ace could even feel any danger, slashed forward. Sult! In the next seconds, the rope binding fell on the ground like old leaves. Woo-hoo! The crew cheered as they stretched their limbs. Meanwhile, Amon was busy giving people bowls full of Odin. They were excitedly eating after accepting it. Among them, the girl named Otama was also eating, swiftly pouring everything in her mouth. Nom. So tasty! She quickly finished her bowl as she noticed people asking for seconds and getting them. Fearfully, she walked towards Amon. Big brother, can I have some more? Seeing Otama raising her bowl like that, Amon laughed and poured more Odin in the bowl. She showed a bright smile and again started to eat the food. Hitetsu was very touched seeing this. Otama was like a granddaughter to him. She rarely has a full belly. This made him emotional and grateful towards Amon. Odin is certainly better than eating raw. Sighing to himself, he grabbed a bowl from beside him and walked towards Amon to get a second. Yo, you are pretty good with children, mister. The brown-haired pretty woman named Perry went to Amon and stroked his shoulder with hers. I wonder how you will behave with your own children. Amon lightly shoved her away and concentrated on cooking. Don't disturb me. Ah, why are you like this? Can't you spare some time and talk to a pretty lady such as myself? For a second, Amon stopped cooking and looked at her face. While she flinched, Amon observed her from head to toe and turned back with a chuckle. I have fucked prettier ones. What? Nothing. Amon shoved her away and prepared to cook some more Odin. Amon concentrated on cooking while the woman kept disturbing him. The crew also ate food while laughing. Ace eyed Amon and Perry every now and then. He was just happy that she was interested in another person outside the crew, only he knew how fortunate this was. Still, it felt unpleasant seeing someone who was interested in you acting like that with another man. It was early morning. In the sky above 10,000 meters, the sunlight was brilliantly shining over the busy Shandora. By looking closer, one could see the winged people training wholeheartedly, as this was their only job right now, training until they collapse. Around the island of Shandora, another island was floating on the sea not too far from it. It looked like a theme park from far, but from up close, one would notice it was fully empty, void of any life. This was the newly reconstructed Thriller Bark. The reconstruction was based on Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom and Wonder Mountain, two famous theme parks from Amon's previous world. In truth, zombies were hiding in every nook and cranny of this land. This was literally a dead park. The moment certain conditions are met, this whole place will change in its looks. Zombies will spurt out from everywhere. The shadows will come out as Yona would command, while the newly made constructions will turn old and creepy, the thing only possible because of the high-tech space technologies. This would be enough to scare people. Most people. However, the construction of a new place would start again. A new mobile island would be made. There it would be eternal night, the true domain of Yona. Currently, inside the spooky mansion of Gecko Moria, hidden behind many uninhabited buildings, two people were present with a dead body standing still in front of them, being experimented on by the power of shadow fruit. Rogue! Grog! The zombie was groaning every now and then while the other two people in the room were out of breath. This is so hard. The person who was controlling the zombie, Yona, sighed. She scratched her head while sitting on the luxurious mattress that could easily room an entire family of 4. Beside her, Tsumi was sitting as well. One might as well notice. Tsumi didn't have a shadow, even though there was a light bulb shining in the room. For that reason, to keep her safe, the windows of the mansion were closed. After all, if the sunlight touched her, she would be burned alive. Tsumi scratched her hand nervously. It definitely is a strange feeling having no shadow. Although she was nervous and disgusted by the zombie, she didn't want to disobey Amon. Amon came here a few days ago and handed them a body, ordering Yona to force the dead body of Deuce to use his devil fruit. Tsumi was appointed to help her, so she was helping her by giving her shadow temporarily. For that reason, to keep her safe, the windows of the mansion were closed. After all, if any natural light like sunlight touched her, she would be burned alive. With such a restriction, people without shadows couldn't exist here freely. To begin with, Amon decided to reconstruct this place so that shadowless people couldn't hide so easily. In the previous thriller bark, it was a flaw where shadowless people could hide and later on plan their way out. However, Amon didn't want that, so he fixed the loophole. Now, if someone really wanted shelter from the sun, they needed to fall back to the demo buildings or this mansion. When they do so, they would be found and experimented on. While the dead person's cold and white body was moving under Yona's commands, some shadowless people in the other room beside it were trying to eavesdrop. They were captured and waiting to be experimented on, so they were doing their best to look for a way to escape. Again, Tsumi opened her mouth. Archpriestess, so is it a failure? Can I have my shadow back? She then started eyeing the human in front of her. This was the body Amon delivered here. One could tell it was a dead body since it was releasing a disgusting scent. Yet, it was standing as if it was alive. The body was only able to stand because of Tsumi's shadow. This was the body of masked Deuce. Yona looked at Tsumi. I think you can. She sighed. I can't force him to activate his devil fruit. I don't think he even has any of his powers anymore. The main reason why Amon wanted Yona to learn and control people's devil fruits was this: to control the possible remaining power of a dead man. Imagine how powerful a zombie Whitebeard would be. Who can still use his powers? Ha, Tsumi sighed. So is it as Kami-sama said? His powers really left his body after he died? Just thinking about it gives me chills. Yona just shook her head and went to fetch Tsumi's shadow. However, wait! Tsumi suddenly grabbed Yona's hand. Her face was strangely excited. Is it not possible to make this guy eat another devil fruit? Won't that give him powers? Think about it! She was excited. If this worked, then Amon will definitely praise her for this idea. Alas, Amon already had this thought. It was an interesting question. The answer was also pretty interesting, yet simple. Amon Pav. By now, Yona must have succeeded or failed. Personally, I think it would succeed after all. Even though genes can change 0 to 100, they can't go back to 0 again. Well, I am being biased as I do want the experiment to succeed. My knowledge of genes is not the best. Like sometimes I might be fully wrong or partially wrong, but never fully correct. Visiting Germa is absolutely needed. I decided to ignore the thoughts. They were meaningless. Rather, I paid attention to the little girl sitting beside me. We were not in the seashore anymore. Currently, I was inside Hitetsu's house, sitting on the floor. The room was traditional Japanese, and I quite liked it. The girl nudged my black jacket. "Mr. Brother, why do you call yourself fool?" It was a little girl named Otama, the bearer of a very useful fruit. She can tame any animal and even the gifters. To be honest, I would have killed her and taken her fruit. Brainwashing her won't be a good idea since she is physically too weak to be that useful. I am not killing her only because I don't need a fruit that can subdue animals. At least not yet. My conqueror's haki is enough. For now, her fruit's use to me is close to zero. Let's not think too much of it. At least let's act like a decent guy until this job is done. Sighing, I answered her question. Because humans are foolish. Just that my foolishness stands out more than normal. She seemed confused at my answer. "Huh? You aren't a fool, though," she replied. But I didn't lie. I was a fool. Without even thinking twice, I did many morally wrong things. But did I? Or do I care even now? No, I don't. I wasn't sure why I was being philosophical today, but it didn't feel bad. However, there was no time to waste. Kaido should be preparing to leave now. I just stroked Otama's head. "Anyway, call your grandpa, tell him I've been waiting for a long time." She nodded and ran off. Looking at her back, I again had the thought, should I kill her? Anyway, I should talk with Hitetsu for a while. I am quite interested in how a Birkin came here. Maybe I can find some interesting clues. Soon after, Hitetsu entered the room while I was sipping a cup of tea. General Pav. While Amon was busy in Onigashima, Kaido was preparing to leave. Beside him, King was standing with his hand resting on his sword. "Kaido-sama, it's a small matter. You don't need to intervene. I can take care of it." King continued. "A mere bounty hunter has the audacity to disobey Beast's pirate. I will make sure to kill him." King was talking about the bounty hunter, Sidra. He was the bounty hunter from a filler episode and movie Stampede. When Amon was a bounty hunter, he absorbed Sidra's guild and made it a part of Valkyrie. Now, after he is an emperor, Sidra is under him, but in secret. To the world, Sidra left the guild after Amon became an emperor, but only Sidra knows that he is nothing in front of that monster and is still working under him in fear. Kaido laughed. "Woro, woro, ro, ro, King! Don't you think I should stretch my limbs now and then?" Kaido continued. "Besides, since I have a meeting with Daffy, then why not visit him myself rather than inviting him here?" Amon knew about this. That's why he planned it, knowing Kaido's personality. First, Kaido will go to Dressrosa, and when his meeting is done, he will go hunting Sidra, King muttered. "That... King!" Kaido glared at him. "That's it. Let's go now." Turning his head the other way while King stayed silent, Kaido then transformed into his dragon form and started to fly in a single direction. After staying silent for a few minutes, then glancing at Jack and Rio behind him, King also took off. Jack was also supposed to come with them, but to make the newbie familiar with this place, he was ordered to stay behind. Fwa. In Hitetsu's house, Amon was sitting while sipping tea, while Hitetsu, the man wearing a red mask, was sitting in front of him. Amon put the cup down and asked the question he had in mind. "Mr. Hitetsu, do you recognize this?" Amon took out the sword from his waist. There was a scabbard that was covered by a white piece of cloth, halting the curious gaze of people. Hitetsu's eyes instantly arched up as the blade entered his vision. He didn't notice because it was under a covered scabbard, but how could he not recognize this masterpiece that his ancestor made? "Is that Kitetsu I, Shodai Kitetsu?" Amon nodded with a strange chuckle. "Yes, this is the sword that your ancestor made, right?" How? No, why do you have that?" Hitetsu was suddenly alarmed. Could it be a sword thief? Again, Amon chuckled lightly and dropped the sword on the floor beside him. Yes, I will answer that, but first you need to understand who you are. Who I am? Amon nodded. He opened his mouth and explained what a Birkin, Skypiean, Shandorian is, where they originated from and who he is. All in all, it was a summary of Hitetsu's origin race. Hitetsu was shocked yet again. So you mean to say I am a Birkin? Yes. He made a thinking pose as he scratched his nose. It's not impossible. I do look different from Wano inhabitants, but I have known for years that my ancestors also had wings like me. There was even a tale about me being from a place far from here, but I have grown simply too old to care about it. Now, Wano is my home. After experiencing hardships along with the people here, I can't think of any other place as my home now, can I? Amon just sighed, nodded. Yes, I get it. I didn't mean to ask you to return. I was simply curious if you knew why your ancestors came here. Amon had a hunch. The hunch most likely was true. I am not sure, the old man said. I am already very old and was not interested in this when I was a kid. I already forgot, even if my father or grandfather ever said something about this to me. Amon just sighed and sipped tea again. I guess it can't be helped then. Suddenly, Amon blinked as he had an idea. Hey, old man, can I ask you something? Hitetsu looked confused, but he nodded. Amon offered, Want me to take Otama to the sky? She won't starve there. She can have Karna as a playmate. He can slowly corrupt her. It would be perfect. It was a tempting offer. Along with Amon's good image, there was a high chance of acceptance, but the answer was simple. I can't do that. Otama is only 4 years old. She can't live without me, her guardian. But Otama, who was hiding behind the door, had a different opinion. She quickly ran towards Amon and hugged him tightly. Mister, will you go adventuring in the sea? If so, then I will follow you. It wasn't hard to make the little girl accept this appetizing offer. Still, Hitetsu tried to refute. But Otama, it's too dangerous. She was like his granddaughter. Letting her go with a pirate, even if it is Amon, just seemed weird. Otama showed her tongue to Hitetsu. Boo, Grandpa, I want to go. Finally, between their shenanigans, Amon passed 2 hours while Hitetsu finally accepted the offer. Though it is mostly because Amon revealed his wings, making Hitetsu feel a strange sense of familiarity from him. This is actually a better option than killing her,